Watching movies and TV can be a great way to unwind, so imagine our surprise when these dark moments came out of nowhere to totally ruin our downtime.
Felina, the last episode of Breaking Bad, might be the most satisfying TV finale of all time. Every question gets answered. Almost every loose thread is tied up. Still, Jesse's big rescue aside, Felina is every bit as dark as the rest of the series. Ultimately, the finale proves that, despite Walt's good intentions, his secret life as a drug dealer fractured the lives of every single person he knew and loved. Yes, poor Walt Jr. is going to inherit a hefty sum of money eventually, but it's still blood money, and that certainly won't undo the trauma of finding out his beloved father was such a rotten guy. Although Walt manages to find it in himself to mount a big rescue mission for his partner Jesse, this hardly redeems his past actions. One of the darkest moments of Felina is Walt's final conversation with Skyler, when he admits that building his meth empire was never about his family.
I did it for me. I liked it.
Luke Cage was an honorable figure in Netflix's dark corner of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Although he'd claim that he wasn't heroic, his actions spoke louder than words. Whether Luke was bouncing bullets off his chest or facing down bad guys with his intimidating swagger, it's no wonder that he quickly became Harlem's hero. Yet, as the show's finale demonstrates, even Luke Cage is vulnerable to the dangers of power. When Luke's archenemy Mariah Dillard finally dies, poisoned by her estranged daughter Tilda, she has one last trick up her sleeve. She leaves her nightclub, Harlem's Paradise, in Luke's name, making the hero a de facto crime boss. Although Luke hopes he can stay true to his morals, his cold stare into the camera in the episode's final moments reveal an emerging dark side. Unfortunately, Netflix pulled the plug, leaving this culturally important series with a serious bummer of an ending. While Superman the Animated Series was a quality cartoon, it never quite escaped the shadow of its predecessor, Batman the Animated Series. However, while the Man of Steel's adventures often seemed lighthearted compared to the exploits of the Caped Crusader, Superman's finale left him hanging in a dark place. The two-part final episode, Legacy, features a mysteriously brainwashed Kal-El, who believes that he's the adopted son of Darkseid. This evil Superman is waging war on Earth in his villainous father's name. Of course, Superman soon recovers and delivers an unholy smackdown to Darkseid. But the people of Earth aren't about to just forgive and forget. Thanks to Darkseid, Superman's reputation on Earth is shot. Aside from Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen, no one will move to help the disgraced Man of Steel.
If you ask me, the bum ought to go back where he came from.
That's how it ends. When the animated Superman returned in Justice League, this plot thread was never revisited. Now that Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is recognized as an honored member of the Avengers, it's easy to forget that the original on-screen depiction of the Green Goliath was a true tragedy. 1977's The Incredible Hulk was a tale of true superhero tragedy. The sight of David Banner hitchhiking off to an uncertain fate as the famous Lonely Man theme plays remains a touching TV moment. The series itself took great pains to depict Banner as a decent man facing horrible circumstances. The Hulk wasn't a superhero but a big green disease, and from week to week, Banner's goal was to find a cure, clear his name, and return to a normal life. Sadly, David Banner never gets a happy ending. The original show ended in an anticlimax, but thankfully, the story continued in a series of TV movies. The last of those was titled The Death of the Incredible Hulk. In the film's climax, Banner's kindness towards so many others goes unrewarded. He's never cured, and he dies in the body of the Hulk after falling out of an airplane. Suddenly, the Lonely Man is even sadder. A medical drama set in a rundown Boston hospital, St. Elsewhere was known for its gritty, realistic storylines. Often cited as one of the most influential shows of all time, St. Elsewhere also ends with the weirdest twist in television history. In the show's final moments, the camera pulls back from St. Eligius Hospital to reveal the building inside a snow globe. A young, autistic boy named Tommy Westfall is staring into the globe, while his construction worker dad, whom viewers will recognize as Dr. Donald Westfall, one of the show's main characters, discusses the boy's condition. The entire show has apparently taken place within Tommy Westfall's mind. Here's where it gets stranger. As postulated by the late comic book writer Dwayne McDuffie, if St. Elsewhere was a figment of Tommy's imagination, then so are a shocking number of fictional characters and settings. St. Elsewhere boasted a surprising number of crossovers. If you connect the dots, other shows that happen in Tommy Westfall's imagination include Frasier, Homicide: Life on the Street, and The X-Files. Even the Marvel Cinematic Universe is subject to the Westfall theory. The animated series Ed, Edd and Eddy always had a bit of a dark side. Despite the show's light tone, the trio of Eds still seem isolated from their peers. Eddie, a boastful loser who's always trying to scam others and worships an older brother who looks down on him, is an especially sad character. That depressing subtext hit the foreground in the show's original finale. Take this, Ed, and shove it. The episode begins like any other, but during the second part, Eddie gets hit on the head and awakens as a bitter old man. The entire series has been Eddie remembering his lost youth. Old Eddie spends the rest of the episode trying to escape his fate, but in the end, all he can do is accept it. For a cartoon, that's a pretty depressing way to go out. However, the show proved popular enough to spark a revival, and an additional 2 seasons followed. Nonetheless, the fact that this episode was intended to be the last we saw of the Eds is definitely a shocker.
Death, disease, and sci-fi satanic visits were the least of your worries in 1990s primetime. The heart of Roseanne was always the working-class relationship between the title character and her husband Dan. That is, until the final season, where a surprise lottery win turns the family into millionaires, leading to bizarre wealthy celebrity hijinks. The series finale hits viewers with the biggest plot twist of the series. The whole last season was a novel written by Roseanne, who never won the lottery at all. Apparently, Roseanne's fiction writing habit is her way of coping with the loss of Dan, who had actually died of a heart attack in the previous season.
My writing's really what got me through the last year after Dan died.
In about 2 minutes, the entire run of the show goes from comedy to tragedy. For what it's worth, the 2018 Roseanne revival showed Dan to still be alive. Of course, then Roseanne herself was written off the show due to her own questionable comments. That's a different kind of dark. The Golden Girls is a cult classic about Miami housemates Dorothy, Rose, Sophia, and Blanche, who dated, dealt with the perils of aging, sass-mouthed each other, and ate a cheesecake in the middle of the night. The show also delivered an episode about the AIDS crisis. The 1990 installment 72 Hours found Rose, played by Betty White, grappling with the news that the blood transfusion she'd received during a surgery years prior may have been tainted with HIV. She gets tested and has to wait 72 frightening hours for the result. Rose endures mental and emotional anguish throughout, and at one point declares that she's a good person and doesn't deserve to get AIDS. Blanche thoughtfully replies,
AIDS is not a bad person's disease, Rose. It is not God punishing people for their sins.
Powerful statement made. And of course, Rose didn't get AIDS after all. It was a comedy show. The 1995 movie Clueless was so popular with 90s teens that ABC and later UPN adapted it into a TV series. Stacey Dash, Elisa Donovan, and Donald Faison reprised roles from the movie, while Rachel Blanchard took over for Alicia Silverstone as Cher Horowitz. The movie was based on Jane Austen's Emma, so the show ran out of source material pretty quickly, but a very special episode in 1999 tackled the perils of drunk driving. Cher's friends throw her a huge 18th birthday party. It's so 90s that NSYNC even shows up. Cher, Marie, Sean, and Cher's boyfriend of the moment, Adam, party hard and get drunk. Everyone but Cher tries to drive home.
Look, Cher, there's been an accident.
While Murray walks away, Sean and Adam get hospitalized, and a short time later, Adam dies from undiagnosed internal injuries. That sure doesn't happen in Emma. Before it became a soap opera about young, sun-kissed Californians, Beverly Hills 90210 was about goofy high school kids who happened to have excellent haircuts and designer clothes. One plot thread involved cool and popular David Silver still hanging around with his sort of nerdy pal, Scott Scanlon. During season 2, Douglas Emerson, who played Scott, wanted to leave the show, so the writers wrote him out in a very big way. Scott's mom asks David and Donna to plan Scott's big 16th birthday party, and they throw a big bash. But Scott, ever the misfit, sneaks away and rummages through a desk drawer where he finds a gun. He plays around with it, and shockingly, accidentally shoots himself dead on his birthday. Perhaps the most shocking thing in this 1996 episode of Home Improvement is that bumbling dad Tim the Toolman Taylor has to stop grunting like a caveman and act like a sensitive, modern man for a hot minute. In The Longest Day, Tim's son Randy goes in for a routine medical checkup. The doctor's office calls and tells Randy's parents that there's a possibility their boy may have potentially fatal thyroid cancer.
You know, if I didn't know better, I think I was dying.
The family has to wait for test results to come in while the two frightened parents contemplate the death of their child, and Randy worries that he's going to die. Everything turns out fine, of course, but The Longest Day feels like the longest Home Improvement episode. Saved by the Bell exists in a bizarro version of the 90s where teens experienced zero repercussions for constantly scamming their principal, who is also their best friend. Bayside High was a strange place to be sure, but it was nearly torn asunder by the cold claw of addiction in the November 1990 episode Jessie's Song. Overachiever Jessie bites off more than she can chew, trying to balance her high level of commitment to school and singing in Hot Sunday, the cover group she's formed with Kelly and Lisa. There aren't enough hours in the day, so Jessie turns to caffeine pills for energy. In a terrifying TV moment, she experiences a panic attack and scream sings, "I'm so excited."
I'm so excited! I'm so excited! I'm so scared!
A caffeine binge would result in agitation and a headache, not a full-on freakout, but it's all because standards and practices wouldn't allow what the writers had originally plotted, an addiction to speed. Still, the show does make a point about how kids like Jessie can easily burn out trying to meet high expectations.
On the surface, Dinosaurs seems like an average sitcom. It's got a working-class dad named Earl Sinclair, his wife Franny, and their 3 kids. They actually have a lot in common with The Simpsons, except for the part where they're prehistoric reptiles created by the Jim Henson Company. Yeah, Dinosaurs was a weird show, but it managed to stay on the air for 65 episodes and maintained such a fun tone that looking back, you almost forget that the show ended with the entire family's grisly, cold, heartbreaking demise. The series finale, Changing Nature, ends with the start of an ice age. If that wasn't bad enough, it's shown that the worldwide climate catastrophe is Earl's fault, or, well, the fault of the company he works for. The final episode closes with the Sinclair family huddled together during the blizzard.
After all, dinosaurs have been on this earth for 150 million years. And it's not like we're going to just disappear.
It's a depressing ending, but it's an incredibly effective one. And hey, they're dinosaurs. You can't say that you didn't see it coming. 90s kids love Batman the Animated Series, but what made the show a classic was its courageous exploration of mature themes like trauma, loss, identity crisis, and more. That all comes together in the show's most intense episode, Over the Edge, which shows a horrific implosion in the relationship between Batman and his eternal ally, Commissioner Gordon. The reason? Gordon's daughter Barbara, better known as Batgirl, is killed by the Scarecrow, and she dies in her father's arms. Gordon blames Batman and swears to destroy everything the Dark Knight stands for. It's thrilling but painful to watch. The Joker's a scary guy, but even his machinations can't compare to the gut-wrenching sight of Jim Gordon blowing up the Batcave or striking deals with criminals to murder Batman. The good news is that it all turns out to be a dream brought on by the Scarecrow, showing viewers Batgirl's worst fears about what her vigilante career could cost. Still, superhero cartoons don't get much darker than this. Nothing turns a wholesome family sitcom into a terrifying creepshow like a good Halloween episode. But Family Matters got so creepy that Freddy Krueger would probably run away crying into his claws.
Tonight's episode of Family Matters is a little scary, so you might want to watch it with somebody brave.
Stevel is the name of a demonically possessed ventriloquist dummy who just happens to look exactly like Steve Urkel, the show's nerdy star character. Now, as we all know from The Twilight Zone, ventriloquist dummies are already creepy enough as it is. This doll, though, is like something crafted in the bowels of hell. His voice alone would be enough to make countless children hide under the bed.
You just got what you wished for, pal.
After he comes to life, the dummy proceeds to systematically torture, play with, and murder the entire cast of the show. So yes, for one episode, Family Matters literally turned into a slasher movie. Once again, this ends up being a dream sequence, but try telling that to the traumatized young Urkel fan who didn't make it to the end of the episode. For an alien life form who spent most of his time plotting to eat the family cat, Alf was a pretty lovable dude. It's a shame that the government had a specialized task force dedicated to kidnapping Alf so they could subject him to tortures like freezing, electrical shock, and dissection. These were the horrific circumstances that prompted the Tanner family to take Alf into the fold and protect him as one of their own. Heartwarming stuff, right? Wrong. In the final episode, Alf was finally called up by his fellow aliens and allowed to leave Earth. But unlike E.T., Alf doesn't get to go home. He misses his flight, and the alien task force finally catches up to him, surrounding him with guns. Fade to black. The ending was supposed to be a cliffhanger for the next season, but the show ended there, with viewers forced to imagine the alien they'd come to love being cut open like the gray guy in Alien Autopsy. A follow-up TV movie came out in 1996 that even acknowledged the experiments, but by that point, everyone had moved on. 90s series finales were rough. Few shows epitomize the 90s as much as The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Everyone who grew up in that decade knows the lyrics to the theme song by heart, and the series introduced the world to Will Smith. Even though the show usually stuck to wacky sitcom hijinks, there were a few dramatic moments, like the classic episode about Will's breakdown over being rejected by his father.
How come you don't want me, man?
But things got even darker when Will takes a bullet for Carlton during a mugging gone wrong. Will survives, but he does get hospitalized. Later on, Carlton visits Will at his hospital bed and tells Will that he bought a gun to protect them if it ever happens again. Rather than being impressed, Will is furious and he demands that Carlton leave the gun behind. Carlton stomps off but does as Will asks. The scene ends up with Will choking up as he empties the bullets from the chamber. The whole sequence is as emotional as a TV program can get. While Fresh Prince went back to being funny after that, these darker moments are some of the big ones fans remember today.
Nickelodeon truly changed the game in televised children's entertainment, opening up territory never dreamed about for kids. However, in Nickelodeon's quest to be edgy, they sometimes went into really, really dark places. SpongeBob SquarePants mines humor from its hugely different characters. SpongeBob is silly, childish, and unrelentingly happy, while his neighbor and Krusty Krab coworker Squidward is reserved, aloof, and sullen. And let's face it, if you had to deal with that much happy day in and day out, you'd be a downer too. However, in the 2012 episode Are You Happy Now?, Squidward's malaise turns into full-on depression after he realizes he has no happy memories. SpongeBob takes it upon himself to create some for his pal, but his efforts fail, prompting Squidward to lock himself away in his house for 2 weeks. SpongeBob peeks through the mail slot to see a pile of mail and an unusually filthy house. Squidward, shuffling around the house in a bathrobe, refuses help, and so, because sometimes people can make big ol' boo-boos, the writers thought it'd be funny to toss in not one, not two, but 3 jokes about Squidward taking his own life. First, SpongeBob remarks,
Hey, Squidward! Well, at least we know he's still alive.
The second occurs when Squidward confesses that he, quote, just can't seem to get happy, and then proceeds to stick his head in his oven. Of course, it's a ruse, and he's merely pulling out a pan of burnt brownies. Oh, and did we mention the scene where the writers trick you into thinking Squidward's about to straight up hang himself?
I can't seem to get happy. Maybe this will help.
That's when SpongeBob takes one last stab at treating his friend's depression. He throws Squidward a party, but since nobody comes, and because he'd made 100 papier-mâché statues of himself, Squidward works himself into a rage and destroys every last one of them, finally generating a happy memory. Way back when, the world of David the Gnome was an integral element of Nick Jr., an early morning programming block for toddlers and preschoolers. This quiet, gentle, fantastical show concerned a bearded gnome named David roaming around the forest with other gnomes, staying away from trolls, and hanging out with a fox named Swift. Already steeped in gnome mythology, the world of David the Gnome doubled down in its final episode to potentially traumatizing effect. Gnome lore says that gnomes live to the age of 400 and then die, and for the entire run of the series, David, along with his wife Lisa and another gnome named Casper, were about 399. The series finale finds David, Lisa, and Casper accepting their deaths, and they march to the Mountain of Beyond.
Well, this is the end of the road. There's the Mountain of Beyond.
Little kids at home then watched, as did David's heartbroken best friend Swift, as the gnomes died the way gnomes do, which is to magically transform into trees. Happy birthday, David.
Don't cry, my friend. Don't cry. After we've gone, you'll find some new friends, I'm sure of it.
Hey, kids love references to Dante's Inferno, the most famous part of the Divine Comedy, the 14th century epic poem in which a mortal travels to hell, right? That's not even nearly the most troubling thing in To Heck and Back, a 1993 episode of Nickelodeon's bizarro cartoon Rocko's Modern Life. Rocko, a wallaby, and his best friend, a male cow named Heifer, dine at Choky Chicken, where the gluttonous Heifer orders nearly $40 worth of food, which is a lot, especially in 1993. While devouring his mountain of food, Heifer chokes on a rib cage and dies. His soul ascends to heaven, but then his angel wings turn into weights and he crashes down in hell, or rather heck. You know, because this is a children's show and saying the word hell would be inappropriate. It would seem that Heifer's commission of the deadly sin of gluttony was especially severe, as a highlight reel of his life points out. He's ultimately saved from eternal torment for eating too much when Rocco revives him, but as they head out to a movie, Heifer asks if they can stop for a bite at Beef Barge. Not only did Heifer learn nothing from his journey to heck, but seeing as how he's a steer, he's also okay with cannibalism. Yikes. For those of you who've successfully repressed chilling memories of the crime against humanity that was Mr. Meaty, here's a refresher. This workplace sitcom, which took the form of both 3-minute shorts and full-length episodes, centered on the day-to-day action at Mr. Meaty, a disgusting fast food restaurant in a mall food court operated by two grotesque puppets, Nerdy Parker and Too Cool for School Josh. In between trying to impress classmates who stop by Mr. Meaty, Parker and Josh deal with unusual fast food problems. In one episode, Parker eats 12 Ms. Meaty burgers, topped with Ms. Meaty sauce that's apparently so loaded with estrogen that it puts him on an excruciating physical transformation into a girl. In another, Parker and a goth girl customer stick their hands in oil and then proceed to eat their own crispy fingers. Oh, and then there's the time Parker eats raw beef and develops a tapeworm.
Gotcha!
As there's something at least mildly disturbing in almost every Mr. Meaty episode, it probably left an entire generation of kids reluctant to go out and get that first after-school job at a fast food place. How Invader Zim ever landed on a children's network is a bit surprising. This cartoon series about an alien named Zim posing as a child and bent on world domination is the creation of comic book writer and illustrator Yonan Vasquez, who was previously best known for his print work, specifically a series called Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, which centered around the eponymous killer and his penchant for brutality. Invader Zim wasn't quite as dark as Johnny, but it did come close on occasion. Take the Dark Harvest episode, for example. One day, Dib scans Zim with an X-ray device, noticing that Zim's organs look nothing like human organs. That prompts Zim to take his passing for human up a notch. He goes on a quiet rampage around his grade school, attacking teachers and students, stealing their organs, swallowing them, and leaving objects in their stead.
Look at you! You've gone too far! You're a hideous blob of stolen organs!
I've been working out.
Zim eventually harvests the organs of everyone in the school. In other words, his twisted scheme of organ thievery works, and he suffers no consequences or punishment. Well, except for a case of head pigeons.
That one is head pigeons. The other one is just annoying. Fix it.
Canadian sketch comedy show You Can't Do That on Television became one of Nick's earliest hits. It was basically a combination of Saturday Night Live and 30 Rock, although the sketches were surprisingly dark for a kiddie show. One recurring bit featured a kid tied to a post trying to talk his way out of execution via firing squad. The suits at Nickelodeon had no problem with underage capital punishment, so they sure didn't mind joking about adoption. You Can't Do That on Television episodes usually had a theme, and for a 1987 episode, that theme was adoption, but it was really let's make fun of adopted kids. In one sketch, for example, a newly adopted child is treated like a dog, leash and all.
Why don't you just go to the Humane Society and adopt a dog?
Oh, well, you see, dear, the Humane Society charges $35 to adopt a dog.
After it aired, Nickelodeon decided to pull it out of rotation. In 2012, show co-creator Jeffrey Darby told Splitsider, "We ourselves didn't understand what buttons were being pushed about an episode dealing with adoption, and that was our mistake. And so that was a bad show. I think it only ever aired once."
The 2010s were full of brutal, gruesome movies, but not all of them got the attention they deserved. From psychologically disturbing dramas to gory horror flicks, these are the darkest movies of the past decade that nobody is talking about. Right off the bat, we're giving props to Philip Seymour Hoffman for creating a genuinely creepy L. Ron Hubbard-inspired character, and for having an amazing mustache. Make no mistake, The Master isn't about Scientology. Except that it's totally about Scientology. The movie was released 3 years before Going Clear came out in 2015, and it definitely plays as a fictionalized version of Scientology's founding. It also stars the phenomenal Joaquin Phoenix, who may have brought his real-life experience growing up in the Children of God cult to the role of Freddy. Freddy is a young soldier who's suffering trauma after World War II, and he's spiraling out of control. We're almost thankful when he accidentally comes across a group known as the Cause by sneaking onto their boat. He's taken under the wing of a writer who leads the group through intimidation and sheer charismatic will.
Say your name.
Freddy Quill.
Say it again.
Freddy Quill.
Say it again.
Freddy Quill.
Despite warnings that this guy is making everything up, Freddy sticks with the group and comes to depend on it for his emotional fulfillment. He struggles with doubt, but he never seems fully able to leave. What makes this film so disturbing is Phoenix's brutal performance as a raging, confused alcoholic who's trapped in a web of lies and manipulation. And the master serves as a powerful reminder of how much damage cults can do. With most horror films, there's usually a clear villain and a clear victim. Excision, however, messes with its viewers until it's no longer clear who the audience should root for, or who's to blame for the slaughter. Annalyn McCord went way against type to play Pauline, a misfit high schooler who dreams of being a surgeon. But Pauline's more than a little obsessed with body parts and blood, and speaking of the red gooey stuff, there is a lot of it. We're talking buckets of blood and graphic dreams that leave Pauline hot and bothered. And the blood in the real-life scenes is so realistic that even horror fans with an iron stomach might gag. Needless to say, Pauline's life is a little bit weird. The people at school think she's insane. Her mother knows she needs help, but instead of getting her psychiatric care, she turns to religion and classes designed to make Pauline a proper lady. Even worse, her sister suffers from cystic fibrosis, and there's nothing Pauline can do to help her. As she grows more desperate and isolated, Pauline tries to find a way to improve her life, even if it means going after people with a scalpel. Some agoraphobes are nice people with a problem. Others are unhinged lunatics keeping their younger sister captive and maybe torturing their neighbors. That's the case in Shrew's Nest, an upsetting film that debuted in 2014 and largely flew under the radar. It's a period piece set in Spain in the 1950s, so it's great for horror fans looking for a lot of blood being thrown against super prim settings. Macarena Gomez stars as Monse, an insane woman in her late 20s taking care of her younger sister after their father never returned from World War II. Monse is deeply religious, envies her younger sister's beauty, and takes morphine to keep herself from fully devolving. But everything changes when a handsome neighbor injures himself and begs them for help. Monse tends to him, and slowly but surely, she starts to grow possessive. His recovery and leaving the two of them may be what pushes them over the edge, and naturally, Monse doesn't ever want him to leave. As The Hollywood Reporter puts it, the film is a nice combo of misery and whatever happened to Baby Jane, with a bit of, quote, old-style guignol mixed in. In other words, you can safely expect a bit of blood. The world seemed to love The Handmaiden at first. It received great reviews and won big at the 2016 Cannes Film Festival and the British Academy Film Awards. Its association with Amazon Studios brought it even more notoriety. But then it faded away from view, and people forgot all about the gloriously gruesome poisoning scenes the film had to offer. You've never seen cigarettes kill someone the way that they do in this movie. The Handmaiden is a period piece set in 1930s Korea, and the whole movie is gorgeous. Probably because it's from the same guy who made Oldboy. The handmaiden at the heart of it is Suk-hee, a poor woman hired to help sway a wealthy countess to marry a con man. But when she learns about the countess's life, she doubts her plan and contemplates switching sides. There's a legitimately interesting story in the film of two women falling in love and working to evade their oppressors, but they're surrounded by sadistic people after their money and bodies. If they're going to have any say in their futures, they'll have to play dirty, and yeah, things get very dirty indeed. Undoubtedly the pulpiest movie on this list, Nurse 3D, or just Nurse as it's sometimes called, is also likely the least famous. It glided under the radar in 2014, going from theater to video in less than 3 months. It was panned pretty universally, and star Paz de la Huerta sued the filmmakers, saying the movie ruined her career. That's great stuff.
There are two sides to every story. Some would see this chapter of my life as the work of a sick woman.
De la Huerta plays Abby, a nurse who spends her spare time killing men who are unfaithful. She's sadistic in both her killings and her relationship with her fellow nurse, Danny. Abby wants Danny to depend on her and love her, and she grows infuriated when the object of her obsession starts to have a life of her own. Drugging Danny for scandalous pictures is just the beginning of keeping the young woman under her thumb. As the movie goes along, Abby's killings get more elaborate and gruesome, giving the term man-hater a new meaning. Granted, the movie isn't exactly Citizen Kane, but if you're looking for a cheery gore fest, then it's definitely the one for you. There's creepy, and then there's kids in danger creepy. If this is a particular trigger for you, skip this movie. Evolution, like a lot of European horror, progresses at a slow but lifelike pace. It's only 81 minutes, but there's enough in this French film to keep everyone interested. The star is Nicolas, a 10-year-old boy living on an island with his mother. The whole island is populated by only adult women and young boys, the latter of whom receive mysterious medical treatments. It's supposedly because all the boys are changing, which doesn't sound ominous at all. Naturally, Nicolas has questions, even more so when he finds a red starfish in the water attached to a dead boy. Why is he there? Why were the mothers writhing around on the sand late at night? Are they really even their mothers? The suckers on his mother's back don't put his mind at ease, as Nicolas tries to figure out what's happening to him and his friends. Part fairy tale, part David Cronenberg movie, Evolution is a film that's hard to forget and one that's equally hard to watch. What would a list of dark films be without at least one story about cannibalism? And when it comes to eating human flesh, movies don't get much gnarlier than We Are What We Are. Released in 2013, this American horror film is a remake of a Mexican movie of the same name. Both films focus on a family of cannibals suffering the recent loss of a family member. In the American version, it's two little girls within the Parker family attempting to take on the religious duties that were previously performed by their mother. And by religious, we mean butchering people for slaughter.
Just wish that we were like everyone else. Well, we're not.
Eating people has been a tradition in the Parker family ever since the pioneer times, when food was scarce and it was do or die. But the world is opening up, and the Parker girls have reasons to doubt their ancient traditions. Hormones make things more complicated, of course. But an autopsy report outs their mother as a victim of cannibalism-related disease, and all those bones showing up in town are drawing even more scrutiny. The girls have to decide which side they're on and if their father's anger is worth evoking. It's a family drama by way of Hannibal Lecter, and it will definitely leave you feeling uncomfortable the next time you sit down for dinner. Released in 2010, I Spit on Your Grave is a remake of the 1978 film of the same name. It's part of a specific subgenre of revenge horror that usually entails a woman undergoing sexual violence and then taking revenge on her oppressors. Some people call this type of film exploitative, while others find it cathartic or empowering. Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie 33% from the critics, though audiences rated it slightly higher at 49%. Your personal tastes may vary. The film starts out fairly calm, with a woman going out to the middle of nowhere to finish writing a book. She has a mostly nice solo vacation, punctuated by some weird encounters with local men.
How's that line working for you?
I don't know. How's that line working for you?
But things take an incredibly dark turn when the men commit a terrible assault against her. She then decides to take revenge after escaping with her life. The rest of the movie is 5 bad men dying in horrible, horrible ways. There are no heroes in this movie, and things get ridiculously brutal.